Namaste. Welcome to Business Morning here on Channels Television. And because it's 10 a.m., then it's time to do current and relevant business. I'm Ini John Mekwa, and we get into it with oil prices. It's edged high on Tuesday, spurred by worries about political instability in Russia and possible supply disruptions, as well as U.S. demand hopes ahead of the summer driving season. Brent's crude futures had climbed 67 cents to $74.85 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate futures rose 73 cents to $70.10 a barrel. Brent had climbed 0.5% and WTI at 0.3% on Monday. A clash between Moscow and Russian mercenary group Wagner was averted on Saturday after the heavily armed mercenaries withdrew from the southern city of Rostov under a deal that halted their rapid advance on the capital. Following the weekend's events, and analysts say that the complacency among traders about Russian oil continuing to seep into the international market could no longer be assumed to the same extent. The challenge has fed questions about President Vladimir Putin's grip on power and some concern about possible disruption of Russian oil supply, although loadings have kept on schedule. Lower supply has already been on investors' minds after Saudi Arabia's pledge to cut output from July. Edible oil now. Malaysian palm oil futures rose on Tuesday for a third straight season, supported by stronger rival oils, a weaker ringgit, and slow production. The benchmark palm oil contract for September delivery on the Bursa Malaysia Derivatives Exchange gained 18 ringgit. That's about $801 per metric ton, and that happened by midday break. The ringgit weakened 0.19% against the dollar, making palm oil more attractive for buyers holding foreign currencies. Palm oil is up on the back of firm Dalian and Chicago Board of Trade soy oil market so far. Production is slow and low, thus providing some support to the market. And also, Dalian's most active soy oil contract rose 0.92%, while its palm oil contract gained almost 2%. Soy oil prices were up 0.31%. Palm oil is affected by price movements in related oils as they compete for a share in the global vegetable oil market. Exports of Malaysian palm oil products for June the 1st to the 25th fell between 4.5% and 8.7% from a month earlier. Cargo surveyor Intertech Testing Services, an independent inspection company, shared this experience. In the grains market, Chicago's soybean futures slid nearly 1% on Tuesday, while corn lost ground as expectations of much-needed rains in parts of the United States Midwest eased concerns over dry weather, which has threatened yields. Wheat fell for a third consecutive session. The condition of United States corn and soybean crops deteriorated to the worst in decades. U.S. government data indicated this, as major producing areas missed out on much-needed grains. The weekly crop progress report from the United States Department of Agriculture shows that the good to excellent ratings for corn stood at 50% as of June 25th, and that's below the average of 11 estimates given by analysts. And then back here in Nigeria, the NECA, which is Employers Consultative Association, are preparing for their summit, which comes up next month. And in the midst of that, they're concerned about some stations, some situation in the country, some decisions by the president, and especially top on that is the promised hike or the proposed hike of electricity from the 1st of July, which is supposed to hit about 40%. NECA DG spoke to journalists about some of these concerns and their plans towards their summit next month.
The president of recent came up with certain policies. One of those is the forex policy, where we merged the official and the Bureau de Change market rates. And while it is interesting that we allow the market to determine the rates, but to reduce the distortion, supply and demand must balance. If supply is still less than demand, there will be a total distortion, and you won't get the real value of the currency, the real aim of your liberalization. You won't probably get it, and that's what we witness now. Rather than the naira coming down as anticipated, we realize the value of the naira is reducing progressively, and the reason being that dollars is not available as it should be, and understandably so. The sources of revenue for foreign exchange, which is predominantly oil, is also challenged. We have the oil theft in the Niger Delta. Thank God that has been addressed significantly by government. Beyond oil, there is very little other areas where we have significant inflow of forex. It is therefore imperative that the country should articulate a definite roadmap in order to diversify the economy towards non-traditional tradable goods and services.
All right, those are the concerns of NECA at this time, and there are other developments nationally. One of that is that the federal government gave the approval through the National Committee on Naming, Registration and Release of Crop Varieties, Livestock Breeds and Fisheries during its 32nd meeting at the conference hall. And the approval is of 10 new varieties of crop, which includes 4 varieties of wheat, 4 of potato, and 2 synthetic maize varieties. So let's talk about this. Already, well, there's some conversations about these bringing down the price of bread. That, of course, will be very interesting and most needed in the country at this time. But let's see how realistic, this is with a farmer who a bit vast on some of these issues. Mr. Tunde Banjoko, the managing director of Omotunde Banjoko Farms, joins us virtually this morning from Aja. Mr. Banjoko, thank you so much for your time. Good morning.
Good morning, Nigeria, and thank you for having me.
So you refuse to face the traffic and come to our studio, Mr. Banjoko? That's not fair. You should show us some love by going through it with us.
Thank God yesterday they suspended work on it, so I'm sure for the next few days we'll enjoy it.
A temporary relief, because this morning I had to go through a bit of it. But anyway, so when you heard this news, what was your reaction? I guess you were excited as a farmer.
As a farmer, I'm excited, but I know the gains is not going to be in the immediate, like people expected and as some media houses projected it to be. The seeds were released to farmers, not to the market, as many put it in their report. So people were expecting immediate reduction in price of wheat in the market. That's not going to happen in the immediate. So that's why I think there's a mix-up. Like you rightly said, it was not just only, wheat that was introduced into the market. Wheat was introduced, maize was introduced, pot tomatoes were introduced, and this is not the first time that it's been done. In 2022, January 2022, about 49 varieties were introduced, and 3 of that was durum wheat. In December 2020, they released about 18. So it's not something that will see the effect immediately.
So those ones that were released before now, do we have them in the market as we speak?
I would say yes, but not all. Because, for example, CBN projected to have about 400,000 tons into the market last year. From what they did, because they did about 100,000 hectares in 16 states. But I was told, and from my own research, some of those states were affected by flood. So until we wait for the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics to give us if CBN was able to meet their 400,000 tons. But of course, that has added some volume because we have moved from 55,000 to 99,000 to about 420,000 tons now. in Nigerian production of wheat. So I think we are gradually having some changes, but we are not there yet. We are still far from where we are going, because at the moment, we have just roughly about 420,000 tons of wheat that we produce locally, and that on an annual basis, and we consume about 5.7 million tons annually. So there's still a huge gap. And for us to cover that gap, we'll probably have to continue this trend for the next 10 years on the average. Maybe in the next 2-3 years, we'll now start seeing the price dropping off if we continue this path of continuous investment into this sector and we address those other factors that affect our yield. Because releasing the variety alone will not reduce the price of wheat in the market, will not reduce the price of bread and pasta as we are envisaging in the immediate.
Yeah, interesting. A lot of points you brought out there when you talk about wheat and reduction in the price of pasta and bread, because a lot of people still talk about the different breeds of both wheat and all that. The one grown in Nigeria is not good for some product or some food, and you still have to import. You know, so I wonder if these new varieties will be enough or will be the right one for us to use for pasta, and so we will not have to.
We are doing the two already. Like I said, the one that was released in January 2022 has durum wheat, which is the hard one, the hard wheat that has high resistance and all that. And then the normal wheat. The durum wheat is largely used for pasta, while the other wheat is used for bread majorly. So we are already working on the two. We are planting the two already in Nigeria. So we're on the right path already. So and about 16 states in Nigeria is supporting those variety already. So I think it's a good move. And when you look at those involved in this release of the variety that we have now, I think this last one is supported by the Lake Chad Research Institute, the International Institute of Improvement for Wheat and Maize in Mexico, and I think the Plant Millers Association are also involved. So both the users and the Research Institute are involved, and I think the farmers are also involved. So, and the test run has been done even before it was released. So I think we'll start having all the various varieties that we need and that we have in the country.
And I hope we'll be able to convince Nigerians to believe in the locally produced one, because sometimes, yeah, we do have these things, but some people actually prefer to still import.
Like I said, that's why the collaboration in this new variety that was released is very important. The Flour Millers Association were involved, even technically and financially, in the release of this variety. So, and they have also committed to to the country that they will encourage the association members to embrace the use of this local variety. So if they are encouraging their members to use it because they are also involved in the process, then there will be wide acceptance. Then, of course, we need to now convince the farmers too on the benefit of this new variety, because it has high yield, then the heat resistance, and then, so if we can convince the farmers more, and some farmers were involved, the Wheat Association farmers were also involved in the test run. I believe if it's accepted by the farmers already, if it's accepted by the millers who are the large users and the majority stakeholder in this, then we should have the benefit in the market, maybe hopefully from the next 1 or 2 seasons. If we can increase from where we are, move it up a little, maybe at least by 10%, 20%, then we'll start seeing those changes. And, we'll be able to also save large funds. At least we can be saving at an average of 500 billion every year if we're able to increase in this tempo.
So the other time you mentioned other factors involved. Yes. Have the farmers gone back to the farms on the average? I just want to know. We are all in the country. We still saw what happened in Plateau State some weeks back. But from my little understanding, some of those states that are major producers of wheat, for example,
are relatively calm. So we have to say that, like Borno State, to the best of my knowledge, Borno State is good. Jigawa too is one of our major, producers of wheat. We have most of the states in the northwest, northeast, and part of north central are the people we rely on for our wheat. So the security is better in some parts, but some of them are still not good enough. So at least for those parts that are good now, it will add to what we already have. So that's one of the factors, because it's one thing to bring out a variety. If that variety is not planted on that large scale that we expect, then we'll not get the benefit and the effect of the research. The research will just be, at best, a research lying on the table of the research institute. But we can get the research materials to the farms, because that's another point I will quickly bring out, is the issue of diversion. We should be sure that these seeds are not diverted from the real farmers or from the farming community in Nigeria. It should not be diverted to some neighboring states or neighboring country, as it were, or exported for other selfish reasons. But if we can push this volume, for example, the one CBN did in 2021-2022 season, they gave out about, out of the 13,000 tons they imported, they kept some. 50,000 hectares was for multiplication, so they could get more to distribute to more farmers. So we should be asking ourselves, where are those ones they multiplied? Have they been given to farmers, or they are just somewhere lying? So if we can get these things to the farmers, we can protect the farmers and then support with funding for those that might be needing funding, and every technical assistance that is needed, then will be good. So
I'm going to follow up on that later. But first of all, let me ask you another factor which I think is also a hurdle to, increasing our supply. The issues around the processing, the use of the pesticides, because some people do have a problem with that. Like I met someone who says she imports corn for popcorn because the chemicals and things used in Nigerian produced corn doesn't make it pop well enough and doesn't have the crisp taste that is expected. So what about all those processes? Who is working with the farmers so that even when they have this seed and the variety, they can actually produce it right for it to be used for all that it has to be used?
What I would say to that is, for that person and other people who think, we have different varieties of maize. Like even these 10 that were released, we had 2 synthetic maize that were released. The one that were released in 2022, there were maize there. So it's for us to find out maybe the farmers planting what you need. Let us know if the person can approach a farmer or a research institute. They will tell them what is available, and you realize there are farmers already planting that same thing, and it's cheaper for us. And then, so if that is handled in that way, we know it. And then for the other part of monitoring what farmers are doing, really for now, we don't have enough extension workers. We don't have enough extension workers, so we need to mobilize and encourage more people to go into that aspect of, extension services, giving technical support to farmers. Normally they should be going on motorbikes, visiting farmers' community, educating them, and letting them know how things are to be done. But we have the ratio in Nigeria, I'm not sure it will be wide apart, farmers to extension agents. The numbers are wide apart. So we need to employ more. Maybe at the local government level, at the state level, we need to bring in more people working as extension agents, and then we'll be able to resolve it. But it's really, and then in terms of our storage too, so we are still not storing them very well. That's why we are still have some of those challenges. There are modern techniques of storing grains now, where they are preserved and the quality is good. So that's what I would say. If we are able to resolve all those, then we'll be good. I think we have enough varieties. We have enough to meet up. If we can be meeting up for the likes of the Nestle, then popcorn should be the least. We should have enough. We have enough people doing, organic planting, even for maize now in Nigeria, street corn in Nigeria. So for popcorn, I think we have enough. and we can handle it.
Okay, so it goes back to that issue of convincing Nigerians to believe in the locally produced crops. To start with. But how are they supposed to work closely with farmers to shorten the chain of communication, so the farmers can directly work with these new varieties, because they are the ones, you're a farmer, you guys are the ones who will eventually plant and produce these varieties that we're looking forward to. What should the chain look like from the government to the science group, who work with this producing variety, and then to the farmers?
I think the current structure now is, once a research institute comes up with a new variety or a seed producing company, you submit it to the technical committee of the NCVRVC, and then they look at it. They will now go to the ecological zone you have projected or predicted to them to work on, and they will also do it on some farmers' land and work with some other farmers group. It's after that they name and release to the market. So one of the routes they take is to work with the Farmers Association that are involved in that commodity. So I think one of the ways to get these things to farmers, like you rightly said, is to probably do more publicity about some of these events and new production. Because I'm sorry to say, not every farmer probably gets to read or listen to news from time to time. So we need to do more sensitization. And that will also still go back to we getting more extension agents, collaborating more with private sectors, because these are mostly government institutions. So they now need to work more with private farmers like us to, create awareness, seminars, programs, to launch it not just within the research community, but within the farmers community. So it's more really of larger orientation and doing serious publicity within the farming community. If we're able to do that, then it will be widely accepted, and then it can be planted, and then we'll start seeing the results.
All right.
So we can really put it down. Thank you.
Okay, just before we let you go, this used to be far, but it seems it's now really close. The risks of genetically modified crops. Because this is where it points to. Before we used to be, in America, they have a lot of GMs and it's not healthy. It has its own dangers. It's close home now. How safe are we?
We are very safe. I would say we are very safe, because if you look at, I'll still go back to the ones that were just released. Two of the maize varieties too are synthetically modified. So they go through a process before they are released into the market. And I think this word genetically modified should be understood. What does it mean to genetically modify something? It means we are bringing, maybe another better word people relate with more is to the word hybrid, meaning I'm bringing the qualities of this one, adding it to this one to resolve this problem. For example, the ones we are bringing out now has high resistance to heat, because heat has been one of the challenges. So you look at which one has this, which one has high yield. You bring out that quality. You bring all these things together. And as long as they have been tested, and before some of these things are released into the market, it's not just the work of 1 week. They take months. I dare say some of them take years before they are released. So I think they've gone through the proper scrutiny by our research institutes before they are released into the market. So we are very safe, but we really need to embrace technology. It's part of technology. This multiplication is part of technology. And if we don't, like the person you gave as an example, the ones that are importing, I'm sure they were not there when they planted it. They were not there, and they were not sure of the entire process. So some of these things, in terms of multiplication, they go through different process. As long as they are certified by our various institutes, they are good. So it's just bringing out the best from different varieties. That's what I would say to that. So it's nothing to fear to worry about.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Banchiko, for that assurance. We'll hold you to your words. Well, thank you
that
for...
actually happens to all crops and all products.
Okay.
For us to have the best out of them.
All right, thank you, Managing Director for Motunde Banchiko Farms, for your time this morning. And those insights really came in very handy, explaining all of that. We appreciate your time. And do have a great holiday starting from tomorrow.
You too, Winnie. Thank you for having me.
Great. All right, let's take a break now. When we come back, it'll be commodities time. And who knows what we're going to talk about. Join us after the break. Welcome back to Watching Business Morning here on Channels Television. And we hear that cocoa farmers are in trouble at this time. Not good one for them. But let's have Adesola Somoni, senior analyst with financial derivatives company, joins us from Reading in the United Kingdom now. Hi, Adesola, good morning.
Hi, Ine, good morning. Thank you for having me on the show.
Good to have you. So back here in Nigeria, while a lot of people are celebrating the FX policy, unification of rates and all of that, it's hurting the cocoa farmers. How?
Oh, thanks for that question. So it's I think it's a mixed bag, really. So like you said, the central bank has allowed the exchange rates to float to reflect, the market forces, and it's good news generally. But for cocoa farmers, I think it has a mixed effect. On one hand, it is kind of increasing the cost of their inputs, right? The inputs in the production process, cost of fertilizer, which is usually imported. It's increasing the cost of herbicides and pesticides, and that is kind of limiting their production, or it's essentially increasing their input costs. So that's one way in which this FX unification is affecting cocoa farmers. But on the other hand, it's actually quite positive, right? So from economics, we know that if the price of a commodity rises, it incentivizes suppliers to increase supply, right? So with the allowing the exchange rate to float, the local currency value, the naira value of exporting a ton of cocoa is higher. So essentially the local currency price or the local currency value of exporting cocoa is higher. And this kind of incentivizes, we expect that's going to incentivize cocoa farmers to plant some more so that they can take advantage of higher export proceeds.
So on the one hand they're gaining, and the other hand they're spending more, but it should balance out. Which way is it balancing into?
And that's a very good question. I think the net effect would be determined by which one outweighs. Also, it will depend on the elasticity, right? So on the one hand, they have more bang for their buck. They have more naira revenue for every ton of cocoa that they export. On the other hand, we are seeing a rise in input costs. So I think it depends. It's very difficult to say at the moment. It depends on which one of these factors outweigh the other one.
All right. We also hear that Nigeria is amassing about $3 billion debts to traders because of oil swaps. Help us understand that.
So the idea, this oil swaps, is called DSDP, which is simply direct sales, direct purchase agreement between the NNPC and a consortium of oil traders and oil majors. And the idea is this: the NNPC allows them to give them some crude oil essentially, and these oil majors or these oil traders supply imports the equivalent value of PMS into the country. So that's essentially the agreement, and that agreement has been on since I think 2016. But however, since we are seeing issues where Nigeria is not able to fulfill some of its obligations in terms of crude oil production. We've seen quite a sharp decline in crude oil production in Nigeria. Even Nigeria is not able to meet its OPEC production quota due to oil theft, illegal mining, force majeure, and also some attacks on oil infrastructure. In addition to that, we're also seeing higher oil prices. When Russia invaded Ukraine, and up until now, oil prices jumped and they've remained quite elevated. So those factors put together, I think they increased Nigeria's debt to these oil majors. But now with the new policy of removing the fuel subsidy, I think with the reform that's coming on the oil market, I think this DSTP is also going to go. So the what is happening now, news from NNPC shows that the monopoly of the NNPC in terms of importing PMS is going to be disbanded. Now private companies would be allowed to also import PMS. I think this is also a part of the plan to finally what's the word now, erase or remove the burden of subsidy from the government.
The private players enter that space and we'll have more supply. But you did mention Russia, and we know that this weekend was a turbulent one for them, and we see obviously as a major exporter of wheat, it affected the price of wheat. Wheat is up about 2%.
Indeed. So I mean, thankfully it was resolved, right? Otherwise prices of Russia-based or Russia-focused commodities will have gone through the roof. Even though the political issue was kind of resolved, there are still concerns that it might have knock-on effects. For example, the Black Sea trade agreement, right, which is up for renewal in mid-July, there are concerns that it may not be renewed. Essentially, that Black Sea trade agreement allows Ukraine to export grains from Russia, from the Black Sea ports, in spite of the war going on between Russia and Ukraine. So with what happened in Russia over the weekend, there are some concerns about the renewal of that agreement. We hope that it's going to be extended, or the agreement is going to be renewed, because if it's not renewed, then it's going to have significant implications for the price of wheat globally, given that Russia is the largest exporter of wheat globally, and also Ukraine is one of the largest exporters. So if that deal is not renewed, or if there are concerns about infighting in Russia that then affects the export of grains from Russia, I think that's going to have significant implications for Russia-focused commodities.
Have to brace up for that, Adesola, because even now that the grain deal is not yet expired, Russia, activities on the Black Sea have not been allowed freely, paperwork and all indirect ways, because Russia has given some conditions that have not been met, and they are saying it looks most likely that the deal will not be renewed. So I guess the world should brace up for not very good days for wheat and some of those major exports from Russia.
Indeed. Hopefully, I think all hands are on deck to make sure that the deal is renewed, because if that does not happen, I think it's going to take the world back. It's going to just essentially take us back, particularly for developing countries who depend on importing staple foods from Russia. I think that's going to have big implications for them. It's going to have big implications for global poverty. It's going to have significant implications for food security. So I think it's even for Russia's revenue. Ukraine and Russia's revenue, right? Yeah. It's going to have big implications for all of that. Even global economy is slowing down because of tightening financial conditions and high interest rates globally. So I think it's going to have big implications on the global economy.
All right. So another commodity on the news is sugar. The futures up. What's driving that?
Two main factors in it. Number one is the weaker dollar. If you look at the dollar, it's weakened, I think, 0.18% week to date against a basket of other currencies. And usually, when the dollar weakens against a basket of other currencies, then commodities that are denominated in US dollars are then cheaper to holders of these other currencies. So that's one factor. But the biggest factor, I think, is this El Nino weather condition, right? So we are seeing the El Nino weather condition, essentially, it manifests in two different ways. It could manifest in excessive rainfall or in drought. So in Brazil, for example, it manifests as high rainfall. Meanwhile, in India, it manifests as drought. And these are some of the largest producers of sugar globally. So with that, there are concerns that this may affect This may affect sugar production in these countries, and that would cause prices to move up quite substantially. The last time we had this was around 2015-2016 marketing year, where we had this El Nino weather phenomenon, and prices of many of these commodities, both even in Africa, we have El Nino in Africa, right, as well as in South Asia. The price of these commodities reached record highs, and at the moment, with what we are having now, I think we are likely to go back to seeing record level price of sugar again.
Wow, and that affects a whole lot of things. A lot of things, have sugar as one of their ingredients. But thank you so much for your time this morning, Adesola Simoni. Dr. Adesola Simoni, Senior Analyst in Financial Derivatives. Forgive me, I'll get used to it. Enjoy the rest of your day.
And you.
All right, now, so that was commodity. Unfortunately, while Nigeria is working on developing the new varieties of wheat, Russia is giving us another side of the coin. But we have thick skin, so we'll get through it, hopefully. We have Anita now coming with some news from the market. Anita, I see the equities closed in the green yesterday.
Yes, of course. It strengthened its move into the green territory. And then so far for the month, which is gradually winding down, so far for the month, we're at about 6.4%. And for the year, we're at 15.70%. So can you beat that? Our market?
But that has been reduced by all of the holidays. We're having 2 days this week. So we only have 3 trading days. I know you've been excited about calculating how much the market has lost this year. So far, half of the year, we've had quite a number of holidays in between.
Yes, we've had so far from the start of the year, from January the 1st to now, we've had about 9 public holidays, and then also that always have an effect on the finances, on the economy, because at some point you lose some money, but of course you got to take care of yourself. You got to take care of your health. Take some time for relaxation, meeting families, and
spend money traveling.
But not for us. We're here. We got to do the job. You
signed up for it.
Yeah, of course. Essential duties, essential services. So that's it. So now let's delve straight into the market. The starting of the week. For the final week of June, the final week of the second quarter and a half year, take a look at the market in the green, 71.95 billion naira, which is approximately about 72 billion naira there, and we're still trotting further into the 32 trillion naira level of the market. And this is thanks to 46 gainers, the likes of Bua Cement, which went up by 2.5%, and GTCO 4%. So take a look at the sectoral performance. Green colors, that green color is so impressive because investors are really going into this market, and of course the stock market is the indicator of economic performance for every country. Of course, across the world, we have stock markets. So you can see there the banking's counter, which is almost a month since the unification of the forex market by the Central Bank of Nigeria. We just announced a couple of weeks ago. So that's it. On that part, that counter is really making much gains across the NGX sectoral performance. Now let's look at the activity chart. Kind of a mixed picture there. The volume of transactions carried out was down by nearly 12% at 552.68 million, but it's on the flip side for the value and the total number of deals, 42.69% in terms of value, and for deals 15.81%. So now we saw the shares of other bellwethers making a positive impact. But to give us more details about this market, let's talk to Peter Abe, equity trader at Stanbic IBTC Stockbrokers. Thank you for joining us, Peter.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Yeah, Okay, so now let's do a little bit of mathematics. It's 188 days spent so far for 2023, and then we have 177 days. So we're about exiting the first half of the year. What's your expectation for the first half results?
Well, if we're going to sum up everything that happened so far in this year, we have the scarcity of cash, and also with the fuel subsidy removal and as well as the FX issue, we're going to see that there are some sectors that benefited from this, and also there are some sectors that will be lagging behind. I mean, let's talk about banking. We expect that to be positive for them in terms of their numbers. We expect that to be positive. However, for the consumers, we have notice that, yes, while we are out of the scarcity of cash, inflation is also something that consumers are battling with, and that as well reduced the consumer spending pattern. So we don't expect too much of profit or positivity from consumers as well as industry. So overall, I think it's just going to be quite good. I mean, factoring banks, but at the end of the day, maybe going into the last half of the year, things will begin to improve as we see every other policy coming.
Okay, so Peter, one more question before I allow you go. You just have just about 60 seconds. Yesterday, the stock Nigeria became the first African country to unveil the IFRS 1 and 2 on the NGX. So how is this going to play into investors in the market and Nigeria's financial markets in general?
Sustainability is something that all firms, even local and foreign investors are looking at. So that will be a good one to be seen in financials annual reports going forward, and that will be positive to bring in more investment into the country.
Okay, so we leave it at that, Peter. Thank you so much, Dr. Peter. That was Dr. Peter Abe, equity trader at IBTC Stockbrokers, giving us details about the markets. Let's move over to the smaller unlisted securities market. For that market, it's another decline from the... Okay, right. So we'll move over to the fixed income market. The fixed income market, we had a bullish performance for the treasury bills market, but this is what's on the FMDQ, which will be commencing live trading of derivatives on July the 12th. But before that date, this is what it turned out for the fixed income market, the treasury bills segment of that market. Only the 22nd of February paper had just one deals at 500 million naira. Moving over to the second side of that market, the bonds market, it was another day of bearish performance there. Average yield there is contracted by 7 basis points to about 13.7%. Across the benchmark, average yield closed flat at the short end, but dipped at the mid and long segments. But take a look at the board here. The highest number of concentration was on the 26th of April 2029 paper, which was a major contributor to total number of 19 deals there, valued at 15.01 billion naira. Moving over to the open market operations, only one deal there, 24th of November 2023, later this year. For the CBN special bills, we also had a bit of activity there. Now for the unlisted securities market, another day of decline, like I mentioned earlier, 0.23% against the 0.51% gain recorded. Total value declined by 89.95 billion, 85.9%. So, that's it for the markets that we track.
Yeah, and I trust you that on Friday we'll have a bigger view of the month.
Exactly.
I mean, not just the month, half of the year.
Half of the year and the second quarter.
Yeah. All right, thank you so much, Aniti. Let's head to London now, where Juliana is standing by. And Juliana, good morning. Yesterday morning, we talked about supermarket. Today, again, we're going to start off with supermarket because we hear the biggest grocers in the UK are going to face a parliamentary committee. What is this about? They are not government officials.
Good morning, Innie. Yes, you're right. The supermarket chiefs are not government officials, but they're wielding a lot of power over beleaguered British consumers at the moment because inflation is stubbornly high. We're not talking about basic CPI inflation, which we know has come down from some of those 40-year highs of double digits. I think inflation is currently running at about 8.7%. But if you look at inflation of basic food items, they're running anywhere between 14.7 and up to 25%. So a lot of these big supermarket bosses are coming under increasing pressure to start trickling down some of those price cuts that they're seeing at the wholesale level to the checkout. And that's one of the reasons why they've been hauled in front of MPs today. In fact, the grilling is currently ongoing. So you've got a group of MPs from across the House speaking to bosses representing Sainsbury's, Tesco, Morrison's and Asda, which by far have the largest market share of the very competitive supermarket sector in the UK. Now, we did hear yesterday from Sainsbury's. They unveiled £15 million worth of cost-cutting measures. So it is going to be much more affordable for families to eat. They're not the first to do that. I believe Marks and Spencer's and some smaller discount stores like Aldi and Lidl have done so in the past. But certainly the Prime Minister and the So Jeremy Hunt thinks so much more done. I think the Conservative government have definitely learned their lessons from what happened with the oil and gas companies who were making extraordinary profits at the time when British households were struggling to eat and heat their homes. So tomorrow, Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, will also follow on from today's grilling, and he'll be speaking to regulators like the Competition and Markets Authority to make sure that these supermarket bosses are doing all they can do to make the cost of living just a little more easier to live with in the UK.
A good move there. Wish you could have things like that in Nigeria, you know, bring the private sector to face some of those. But we hear the Prime Minister is going to be very busy today, starting with prayers. And I mean, why is his schedule so important to make it to the news today?
Goodness, I've got to say that the Prime Minister is certainly under pressure, as he always is. Anybody who holds the keys to number 10 is going to be incredibly busy every day. But you're absolutely right. There is the National Parliamentary prayer breakfast currently taking place in Westminster Hall. I believe 700 MPs who are of the Christian faith will be there. We know the Prime Minister isn't a Christian. He is Hindu, but of course he is representing his faith at that prayer today. He is going to be busy because as soon as he's finished that, there'll be a cabinet meeting talking about the most serious issues of the day, which of course are inflation and the eye-wateringly high borrowing costs that is pushing about 1.2 million mortgage holders on the brink. And then swiftly after that, I believe he'll be chairing a meeting with healthcare leaders because, believe it or not, industrial action is still ongoing in this country, despite the fact that the Health Secretary, Steve Barclay, has tried to strike a couple of deals with some unions. There are other unions that still want to receive a decent wage at the end of the month, so they don't have to go to food banks. So yeah, lots to discuss. Also that there are going to be 4 by-elections for the Conservative government because, of course, 4 MPs, including Rishi Sunak's predecessor Boris Johnson, stepped down from Parliament. So yes, it is going to be a busy day, but the theme of today, I think, is certainly going to be inflation, which is remaining stubborn and dragging down the UK economy.
Inflation, but not just in the UK. You know, we're above 22%. So, but thank you so much, Juliana. We'll see you at 1:30.
See you then. Thanks, Sine.
All right, let's see how stubborn inflation has hit, the crypto market with Laddie Williams.
Yeah, stubborn inflation, stubborn Bitcoin, you know, trying to stay above that.
Resilient Bitcoin.
Quite resilient.
Yeah.
It's holding on to that level.
That 30,000.
Yeah, that 30K level. I'm seeing investors, you know, getting quite greedy at this time after getting into fear. And I
can't wait for us to get back to fear.
Back to fear. Well, yeah,
it's a good entry point. So some people are waiting to get into the market.
That's one thing about markets, you know. Some people enjoy it when it's bullish. but some love it when it gets bearish.
Yeah, because it's an opportunity to hop, exactly.
To get into that market. Anyway,
yeah.
let's look at this one now. We see the fair greed index, 59 points, showing that the investors are quite greedy at this point. Let's look at the top cryptocurrencies that we track. We see Bitcoin still holding on to that 30,000 level. If we flip over to the cryptocurrencies we track now, 30,295 at 8 a.m. this morning, 0.16%. Up. Ethereum holding on 1,800 level, was down 0.68%. We see BNB there, the token for the Binance exchange there, holding up 0.39%. And we see Cardano, another sell-off there for the cryptocurrency, 2.40%. Down this morning, and XRP 47 cent down 0.94%. So it's a mixed bag we're seeing on the top 100 cryptocurrencies we track on CoinMarketCap. Let's look at the top gainers now. We see Bitcoin Cash. Yeah, Bitcoin Cash is topping that counter with a double-digit gain, $219, up about 100% in about 7 days. Quite interesting. It started about $106 a week ago, but we're seeing a bullish run there from Bitcoin Cash, taking it all the way up 13.99% this morning. So we're seeing the double-digit gain for the top 100 coins there. Bitcoin Cash is topping that counter now. Let's bring in Olopo Deni, financial market analyst, joining me via Zoom. Great to have you on the show.
Great to have you too.
Yeah, so looking at price action, right now in this market, we're seeing Bitcoin Cash, that's one of the forks of Bitcoin, doing pretty well. It's done about 100% this week. It's up double-digit this morning. What's getting investors so excited about Bitcoin Cash?
I think one of the things that is making them excited about Bitcoin Cash is because of the recent Bitcoin ETF from BlackRock, which is the largest asset manager. And most times when great news come for Bitcoin, the folks tend to pump 2 or 3 times greater than Bitcoin itself. So if you look at the market, Bitcoin has gone up from about 29,000 to 31,000 and is around 30K now. And that move has also affected other folks like Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV. Those are part of the reasons why you can see that rise of about 100% in the past week.
And some people might hear, forks, and they don't understand, what that means. Can you break it down for some of our viewers now? What exactly is a fork in a cryptocurrency?
A fork in the cryptocurrency is when people decide to take the code of an existing cryptocurrency and create their own cryptocurrency by adding advantages. For example, Bitcoin Cash has a bigger block limit compared to Bitcoin. Bitcoin has a block limit of, I think, 4 MB, which means that Bitcoin can only do a limited amount of transactions. And most times, the Bitcoin blockchain gets freed up within 10 minutes. For every block that gets freed up, it takes 10 minutes to build another block. But Bitcoin Cash has a larger block limit, which makes sure that transactions are faster and cheaper. So the people that created Bitcoin Cash wanted a Bitcoin platform that was faster and can do more transactions. So that's what they call a fork. We have different kinds of forks that have happened in crypto. We have Ethereum, that was a fork of Ethereum Classic, and we have different kinds of forks. Even Bitcoin has 2 to 3 forks existing in the market because it is the largest cryptocurrency.
And just to be clear, the spelling, what we're talking about is F-O-R-K, a fork. That's what we're talking about, right now. So definitely Bitcoin has other forks at this point. There's Bitcoin Diamond, there's Bitcoin Gold. How are those ones looking?
Those ones too are actually doing well, but compared to Bitcoin Cash has exceeded expectations in the past week, and we're expecting more because this application by BlackRock is very huge because they are the largest asset manager in the world, and they've applied for a Bitcoin ETF. That's an exchange-traded fund where people that don't want to get exposure to the real Bitcoin can actually get exposure to shares of the ETF, because the ETF tracks the prices of cryptocurrencies. And that's very huge, and I am expecting that we must see a significant spike in the coming days.
Right, and the month of June is definitely winding down, right now. Very quickly, what are you expecting for July?
I'm actually expecting better things for July, because June was quite bleak due to the regulatory issues that happened to Binance and Coinbase. And the fact that BlackRock has come up, we've seen more institutions apply for Bitcoin ETFs. So I'm expecting that for July, we might see Bitcoin hit the 33K to maybe to 34K mark.
All right. We're looking out for that, definitely. Thank you so much, Adeni. Always great having your perspective.
Thank you also.
All right, let's look at what's happening with the top losers counter now. We see BitTorrent there down 5.03%. So we're seeing single-digit losses this morning. Kava, that's down 4.54%, 98 cents. Lost that $1 mark. And we see Cardano getting on that top losers counter there, still down 2.48%. So, that's how the market is looking right now. It's still greedy, but, still trying to find that full-on direction, to know where the market is going to go to for the second half of 2023.
And the good thing is the market doesn't go on holiday. At least the crypto market.
No holidays here.
You're trading on even all through the holidays.
Exactly.
So good enough.
Maybe investors can take a break, but the
market is open.
The market keeps going.
All right. Thank you, Ladi. See you at 1:30.
Thank you.
For Business Incorporated. So Ladi will be back 1:30 with updates from the world of business. I'll be back tomorrow. I know you're preparing for your holiday. We'll be here to spice up your holiday, because even when you're on holiday, you should still be making some money. So we'll be talking to you about that tomorrow and the next day and the next day. I'm Inijod Mekwa. Take care.